Hello and welcome to The Spot for the final Game Week preview video of the season. And I hope you have first spot locked up. If you don't, we'll try to help you finish as high as you possibly can. I'll be talking about the top fantasy players in each of the 10 fixtures in Game Week 38. And I will reveal my Waiver 11. The final Waiver 11 of the FPL season. Should be a whole lot of fun, and it's all right here on The Spot. Well, if you've seen these videos before, you know that this is when I usually remind people to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and give these videos a like. I want to thank you for your constant support, especially those who've been following this channel since day one, since I launched it in January. And a special shout out to the man responsible for all the graphics in these videos, including the logo, Ravi. Thank you so much for your constant support. Could not have done this without you. And a quick shout out to some other content creators, podcasters first of all. You've heard me talk about FPL Draft Boys before. The guys in Australia having a whole lot of fun week to week as they go through their fantasy draft season. Love that podcast. Another one worth listening to is Banter Boys. Check that out if you haven't listened to them already. And then on the YouTube side, one in particular, it's not fantasy draft specific, but FPL GW38. I've been watching his videos, and he's creative. He's always trying new things. Love his videos. So FPL GW38 is a YouTube channel worth checking out. All right, we'll get to the Waiver 11 in just a few. First, let's talk about the top fantasy players in each of the 10 fixtures in Game Week 38, the final game week of the EPL season. It's gone by so quickly. And the form rating that I'll be using, as I always do in these preview videos, is a 4-game average. I'll be looking at each player's 4-game average instead of what the FPL site uses, which is all matches played in the past 30 days. All right, let's get into it. So we're going to have a little fun with the final game week of the season, the final game week preview for the FPL season. I have my daughter joining me. Elsie, you want to say hi to everyone?
Hi.
All right, good stuff. First match we're looking at, Leicester versus Tottenham. Kelechi Iheanacho is averaging 5 fantasy points in his last 4 matches, and he has 12 goals this season. Good for him, hey?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and what about Jamie Vardy? He's averaging 2.75 in his last 4 matches. Guess how many goals he has this season? Guess.
3?
A little bit more. Higher. How many goals do you think
8?
Vardy? Oh, a little bit higher?
12?
Close, 13. So he has one more than Iheanacho. Let's see if they can add to their total this weekend. Gareth Bale averaging 7.75 fantasy points in his last 4 matches. Worth noting here that he played only 18 minutes in the previous match, but I expect him to start in this final game of the season. Another player for Tottenham that I expect to start this weekend, Harry Kane, averaging 3.5 fantasy points in his last 4 matches. He has 22 goals, tied with Mo Salah for the most goals in the season. Do you think he wins the Golden Boot and gets the most goals? What do you think? Maybe. Okay, we'll find out soon enough. And this is also his final match with Tottenham. That's pretty sad, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It's expected to be his final match with Tottenham. It's expected to move on. We'll see where he ends up. And the next match we're going to talk about is Wolves versus Manchester United. This is a lot of fun. I'm guessing you're going to go with Wolves, right? Because Wolves, obviously. No? Who do you think is going to win this one?
Manchester United.
Yeah, because your cousin's a big Manchester United fan. I'm guessing that's why. Okay, Fabio Silva for Wolves, averaging 4.25 in his last 4. Adama Traore. Guess what Adama Traore is known for? Why everyone can picture him on the pitch. Do you know why everyone can? Yeah, he's strong, super strong, 3.5. But now, the team that you expect to win this match, Manchester United, Bruno Fernandes averaging 5.75 in his last 4 matches, and striker Edinson Cavani has been very good recently as well, coming off a brilliant goal last week against Fulham. He's averaging 5 fantasy points in his last 4. West Ham versus Southampton. Michael Antonio is averaging 6.5 in his last 4. Said Benrahma has been very good for the past 3 or 4 game weeks. He's averaging 5.5 in his last 4. And then for Southampton, Danny Ings, 3.75 in his last 4, and I expect that he will play a lot in this final match for Southampton. James Ward-Prowse has been the most consistent option for Southampton all season long, averaging 3 fantasy points in his last 4, goals, assists, whatever it is. He's usually there to provide something. Sheffield United versus Burnley. Lowly Sheffield United. Daniel Jebison averaging 2.5 points in his last 4 matches, coming off back-to-back starts. He's born in Canada. Represented England at the youth level. England's U18 team has not decided whether he's going to play for Canada or England at the senior level. Who do you think he should play for, LC?
Canada.
Yeah, me too. That's who I'm hoping he plays for anyway. So Daniel Jefferson averaging 2.5 in his last 4. David McGoldrick averaging 2 fantasy points in that same span. Chris Wood is averaging 4, so he's been a little bit quieter recently. But Sheffield United, they allow goals. Do you think Chris Wood's going to score this week? I think so. I think there's a good chance he scores against Sheffield United. Maybe is a great answer. Ashley Westwood averaging 3.75 in his last 4. Now for Fulham versus Newcastle, Bobby Decordova-Reid has been one of the better options for Fulham, averaging 3.5. Ademola Lookman, not very good. 1.5 for Ademola Lookman in his last 4. Joe Willock, very good. He's been excellent recently. He has scored a goal in 6 straight appearances. That's incredible. He's averaging 6 fantasy points in his last 4. Emil Kraft, this is one that I haven't mentioned all season long, but I have to give a shout out to my cousin Jordan, who's mentioned Kraft over and over again. He's a big Newcastle fan, so I should have taken his advice. Kraft averaging 3 fantasy points in his last 4, but he's the 4th highest Newcastle player for fantasy points per match. Not many people realizing that. Best Newcastle defender for points per match. So a couple things to note there. If you're just going on average, just going by the numbers, Emil Kraft's the best one as far as defensive options for Newcastle go. Leeds United versus West Brom now. Patrick Bamford averaging 5.75 and Jack Harrison averaging that same number, 5.75. LC, is that surprising to you? Mm-hmm. Yeah, a little bit. For West Brom, Mateus Pereira has been the best option for West Brom all season long, the best attacking asset. He'll probably move on. I can't imagine him staying at West Brom because he's been so productive this year. 5.25 in his last 4. Hal Robson-Kanu, first time mentioning him in his preview portion of the video, averaging 2 fantasy points in his last 4 matches. Moving on then to Arsenal versus Brighton. Arsenal's been up and down all season long, best way to put it. Nicola Pepe has been pretty good recently, though, coming off a nice goal last week, 6.25. Emil Smith-Rowe has put together some decent performances recently as well, finding his form once again. When he burst on the scene, it was very good for Arsenal, gave them a burst in it's December, January, and then he kind of cooled off a little bit, but now he's finding his feet again. Pascal Gross, I was supposed to ask you how you pronounce that name. Pascal, what is it for Brighton? Grobe. It looks like Grobe. It's Pascal Gross. That's a fun character, hey? Yeah, 5.25 in his last 4 outings. Leandro Trossard is averaging 4 fantasy points in his last 4 matches. For Aston Villa and Chelsea, I'm hoping this game opens up. Chelsea's obviously still going to be going for it. Ollie Watkins averaging 3.25 in his last 4 outings. Jack Grealish, he's fully healthy now. Should be match fit as well, averaging just 1 fantasy point in his last 4, but I expect that he'll be putting forward to a strong effort against Chelsea here. Ben Chilwell averaging 3.25. And if I'm to choose between the Chelsea defensive options, I think Chilwell's the one I'm going with, but it's really tough to tell who Tuchel's going to go with. Christensen might be a decent option, actually, if you're taking a flyer on a Chelsea player. I'm pretty sure Antonio Rudiger will not be playing this match. He'll be rested for that Champions League final. Hakim Ziyech averaging 3.25 in his last 4 outings, and I expect that he will start this match after sitting that Leicester match, and then I don't expect him to be in the best 11 for that Champions League final. 2 more matches to go, Elsie. We're almost there. Manchester City versus Everton. I think that you might like Manchester City. Why do I think you might like Manchester City?
Because it's blue?
Yeah, it's the blue is not like the Chelsea blue, but I know you're a Chelsea fan through and through, but I think that Manchester City might be another team you like because the blue is very similar to Elsa's blue.
That blue?
Yeah, just like that blue that you're pointing to. Ferran Torres is averaging 8 fantasy points in his last 4. Phil Foden averaging 2.75 in that same span. And then for Everton, try pronouncing this one, Elsie. See if you can pronounce this name here. This is a fun one that a lot of people struggle with, including myself.
Lucas Danger?
Try that into the mic.
Lucas Danger?
Yeah, let's call him Lucas Danger from now on. Luca Dunia, I think, is how some people pronounce it, but I like Lucas Danger. 6 fantasy points in his last 4 outings. Dominic Calvert-Lewin averaging 3.75 in that same span. Last match, most important match maybe of the weekend, Liverpool versus Crystal Palace, and all of these matches are kicking off at the exact same time. So Trent Alexander-Arnold is averaging 7 fantasy points in his last 4 outings. Mohamed Salah averaging 6.5 in that same span. And again, I mentioned it earlier, Mo Salah and Harry Kane, both on 22 goals coming into this final weekend of the EPL season. So they'll both be going for the Golden Boot. But more importantly for Salah, he's trying to get that win, obviously, and finish in the top 4. Christian Benteke averaging 7 fantasy points in his last 4 matches. He's been very good, getting goals in consecutive games. And then Wilfried Zaha averaging 3 fantasy points in his last 4 matches. That does it. Elsie, what'd you think of all that?
It was good.
Yeah, I think it was pretty good too. All right, that's it. Thanks, Elsie. You were helpful. Okay, it's Waiver 11 time, and this portion of the video is usually for fantasy draft managers, and I get it. This is when you're looking to figure out who you want to pick up for the upcoming game week. But I want to know, what are you playing for this week, in the final week of the FPL season? Does your fantasy draft league incentivize finishing in the top 4? Is there a reward for finishing in the top 4, or is there a punishment for finishing last? Let me know what your fantasy draft league does. I'm in 2 draft leagues, and it's all about finishing first. That's all it is. I don't mind it. I'm still trying to finish as high as I possibly can. And if you're curious, no, I'm not in first in either of them. I'm in 3rd in one of the fantasy draft leagues with a chance to finish in 2nd. So I'll be gunning for that. But let me know what your fantasy draft league does in the comments below, or hit me up on Twitter at TheSpot4FF or at Asa Rehman. All right, let's get into the final Waiver 11 of the FPL season. And I'll start with the goalkeeper, then work my way up the pitch, as I usually do with these Waiver 11 teams. And I was very pleasantly surprised to see Emiliano Martinez of Aston Villa available on waivers in one of my fantasy draft leagues. So I'm scooping him and inserting him right into the starting 11. The first defender I'm taking is Michael Keane. It was going to be Diego Llorente for a 4th straight week on the Waiver 11 side, but instead I'm going with Keane because I believe Llorente is dealing with a muscle injury and is not expected to play this weekend. So Keane's the guy. After that, 2 Brighton defenders, Dan Burn and Adam Webster. And the reason why I'm going with a couple Brighton defenders is because they score goals. Whoever it is, they usually bag a goal. So I'm taking 2 of them, hoping one of them scores for this Waiver 11 team. Finally, the 4th defender on the Waiver 11 side is Matthew Lowton of Burnley, and he's been on this team before, pretty consistent, solid player for Burnley. And for the midfielders, I'm sticking with Burnley as well. Ashley Westwood's the first one I'm selecting. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg is the next one, and then back to Burnley. Dwight McNeil is the 3rd midfielder I'm taking. The 4th one is Hakim Ziyech of Chelsea, and I think he has something to prove as the season winds up here. He's had an up and down year so far with Chelsea, and I'm expecting him to finish with a bang. I don't think he'll be in that starting 11 for the Champions League final. This is an opportunity for him to really show what he's got. For the forwards, Fabio Silva, he's available. I'm taking him. The youngster's seen a lot of playing time recently. And then the other one is Timo Werner. He's available because somebody dropped him last week. Might have been a pretty smart and savvy move by that manager because Werner not expected to play this week, or I believe he'll be rested anyway for the Champions League final. So that might have been a smart move by that manager. For the bench, but for this Waiver 11 team, yeah, Werner, the player of his quality, he's got to be in there. He's got to be starting. Now to the bench, yeah, goalkeeper Kepa Arrizabalaga is the first one. Well, he's the goalkeeper, so that's usually what I go with. And then the 3 players, Bertrand Traore, Bobby Decordova-Reid, and Reece James round out the Waiver 11 team, the final Waiver 11 team of the FPL season. Well, that wraps up the final game week preview video of the FPL season. Don't worry, we will continue to create videos, MLS fantasy content, Euro fantasy content. It's all right here on the spot for fantasy footballers. Enjoy the rest of your week, your weekend, whatever you're doing, do it safely. Thanks so much for hanging out at the spot.